Hello. Well, there's a number of you who've been kind enough so far to watch a number of the short, I suppose you can call them film lectures we've done recently. You'll know who I am, but my name is John Rees. I'm a chiropractor based in Ilkley in West Yorkshire, and currently we're doing a short series of, let's call them lecture videos in relation to giving a little bit more knowledge about how our body works. And today we're going to focus on the cranial nerves. Now, in an earlier film we provided a generic outline of the human nervous system, and if you've been kind enough to look at that video, which is just called the nervous system, you will recall that we have two different nervous systems, the involuntary nervous system and the voluntary nervous system. And also you will recall that in the voluntary nervous system it's divided into two separate parts as well, the peripheral nervous system and the central nervous system. Now, the cranial nerves form part of the central nervous system. Now, as you can imagine, using the term cranial nerves, these nerves are located in the head. To be more precise, they exit directly from the brain and the brain stem. There are 12 cranial nerves, and they're notated, or their nomenclature is done in two ways. One, by using the first 12 digits, let's say, of Roman numerals, and the second is they're giving specific names which really relate to their usage. Now, you will recall that the peripheral nerves that we spoke of in an earlier lecture have a sensory part to them and a motor part to them. Interestingly, in the cranial nerves, some of them have solely a sensory part, some have solely a motor part, so a power part, electrical power to make muscles work, and some, like the peripheral nerves, have a combination of a sensory part and a motor part. Now, to assist our understanding of each of the 12 cranial nerves, we're going to use the following wonderful artistic depiction created by someone called Armando Hassan Ungan, and we thank him very much for that and for his artistic work, but it makes it slightly more interesting too. So let's start with the first cranial nerve, which we call CN1, cranial nerve 1, and it's called the olfactory nerve. Now, the olfactory nerve serves the nose, and hence it's the nerve that gives you the ability to smell, and therefore it is just a sensory nerve. Here we can see cranial nerve 2, the optic nerve, and this serves the inside of the eye, and it's effectively a nerve that allows you to see. You all have heard of your retina, and the retina is the back of your eye, on which you'll find rods and cones, and those are the little sensors that effectively allow you to see. But you will also have heard of your blind spot, and your blind spot is the point on the retina, so the point at the back of the eye where the optic nerve sort of comes into the eye. Cranial nerve 3, the ocular motor nerve, also serves the eye, and it provides power to 4 of the 6 muscles that make the eye move, and those are what we call the extraocular muscles, so the ones that cause your eye to move up, down, left, right, obliquely up, obliquely down, etc. Now, interestingly, the ocular motor nerve also serves the ciliary muscles, and those are the little muscles above and below the lens of the eye, and therefore effectively they work the accommodation of the eye. Because obviously your eye focuses on distant things and close things, and obviously you have to change the thickness of the lens so that whether it's at a distance or close up, the focus is always on the back of the retina. Cranial nerve 4, known as the trochlear nerve, it's a motor nerve, and it's kind of a small nerve in its sense, because all it does is it services a muscle for each eye, so a total of 2, and basically it services a muscle called the superior oblique, which kind of causes you to look down towards your nose, so inwards and downwards. Now, while focusing on the eye, sorry, and excuse the pun, we'll slip on cranial nerve 5. We'll just talk about cranial nerve 6, because cranial nerve 6 is the abducens nerve, which again, like the trochlear nerve, cranial nerve 4, just serves 2 muscles of the eye, so 1 in each. And the term abducens basically means turning outwards, and we have abductors muscles in the legs, and they sort of turn the leg outwards, or the abducens nerve turns your eye laterally outwards. So the right eye looking to the right is served by the lateral rectus, which is served by this nerve, the abducens, and similarly turning the left eye left laterally is served by this nerve and the similar muscle. So in relating to the muscles that move the eye, you have 6 for each eye, 4 served by the ocular motor nerve, cranial nerve 3, and 1 muscle each side by the other 2 nerves that are involved, which is cranial nerve 4 and cranial nerve 6. Now you can see here cranial nerve 5, which is called the trigeminal nerve, and its services, and it's both a sensory and a motor nerve. It serves a lot of the face from a sensation point of view, and you can see from the diagram that the face is divided into 3 different sensory sections, and we notate those as V1, V2 and V3, V obviously standing for the 5. In addition, it also services the sinuses and the teeth. The motor part of the trigeminal nerve serves the muscles of mastication, and these include the medial and lateral pterygoids, which are kind of inside your teeth, inside your inside your jaw, the temporalis, which is kind of up here, and the masseter, which is the massive one here. So they're all served, the muscles of mastication are served by the trigeminal nerve, cranial nerve 5, and the motor part of that nerve. So we've done cranial nerve 6, let's have a look at cranial nerve 7 here. This is called the facial nerve, and it is the main nerve serving nearly all of the muscles of facial expression. And strangely, just as an aside, did you know you have 43 muscles, 43 facial muscles? I've always wondered where the odd number comes from, and as yet I've yet to work it out. But yes, we have 43 muscles of expression in the nerve. Now, the facial nerve also serves to power the glands around the jaw, including the submandibular, the sublingual, as well as a sensory part of the front 2/3 of the tongue. Cranial nerve 8, which we call the vestibulocochlear nerve, is actually made up of 2 separate parts that just sort of amalgamate and become the one nerve. The vestibular bit, which is the sort of balancing part, and the cochlear bit, which is the hearing bit. And as you can imagine, they relate to the ear, which obviously is important both for hearing, obviously, and also for balance. And in the inner ear, we have what we call the 3 semicircular canals, which are hemispheres in 3 different planes, hence assist you with your balance and knowing where you are in space. Cranial nerve 9 we call the glossopharyngeal nerve, and the pharyngeal bit probably gives you an indication of what that services or what that serves, and that is the taste buds at the back of the tongue, because obviously we've got the cranial nerve 7 deals with the taste buds at the front, 2/3. It also services the throat, the tonsils, parts of the middle ear, and the parotid glands, which are obviously sort of down beside your jaw. Now here you can see cranial nerve 10, the vagus, and the vagus probably is the biggest workaholic of all the cranial nerves because it comes out, as shown again, like the rest in the brain, but it actually services the trachea, the lungs, the bronchi of the lungs. It also serves the heart and all the gastrointestinal tract, as well as the arteries, it is. So it's a nerve that really has a long pathway from the top to the bottom, literally. Now, cranial nerve 11 is totally different to the vagus nerve, because we said the vagus is a massive nerve. Cranial nerve 11, called the accessory nerve, that it just services 2 muscles around the neck and upper back. The trapezius muscle, which we've all heard of, which is adjacent to the upper trapezius, and also the SCM, as we call it, which is the sternocleidomastoid, and that kind of does that sort of action for your head. Now the final cranial nerve 12, we call the hypoglossal, and this one only has a motor component, and it serves the muscles of the tongue. That's it. So as you've probably noticed from the diagrams that have been sketched out, the cranial nerves from 1 to 12 sort of in relation to the brain start at the anterior part at the front, and they sort of radiate clockwise, or the points at which they exit the brain, towards the back, and come out at various parts of the brain, the brainstem, the pons, many other parts, but we won't go into the specific exiting points that you have for these nerves. But as they come out from the brain and mostly service areas in the head, quite naturally, their pathways take them to have to go through parts of the skull. And therefore there are holes particular for these nerves, holes that we call foramen, in the skull to allow the nerves to get to their destinations. Now, on occasion, the efficiency of a cranial nerve can be affected by a blockage or a swelling around this hole, the foramen, through which the cranial nerve passes. Additionally, a number of these nerves share a foramen through which they pass to get to their destination, and therefore if there's a swelling of one nerve, that might not only affect its efficiency and its workability, it might also, particularly if it's around the foramen, impinge upon and have an effect on other nerves passing through that hole. So as you can imagine, knowing the pathway of each of these cranial nerves and the areas of the head that they serve allows us as chiropractors, as well as other clinicians, that is if they've been appropriately taught their neuroanatomy, to diagnose certain neurological conditions from the symptoms that a patient tells us, and then hopefully we can treat it, or we can definitely refer to an appropriate consultant to assess them further. So just to remind you, as we've said, we've got cranial nerves that are, some are all motor, some are all sensory, and some are a combination of both. So the ones that are all motor are cranial nerve 3, 4, 6, 11 and 12. That's the oculomotor, the trochlea, the the abducent, the accessory, and the hypoglossal. The cranial nerves that are both motor and sensory, there's just 3 of those. Oh no, there's 4 of them, sorry. Cranial nerve 5, the trigeminal, cranial nerve 7, the facial, the 9th, the glossopharyngeal, and the 10th, which is the vagus. And therefore, there are 3 that are just sensory. And that's the olfactory, the optic, and the vestibulocochlear. Okay, that's a quick run through some very, very important major nerves, cranial nerves that come out of the brain, service the head predominantly, and areas around the head. Hopefully that's been informative. And thank you very much for taking the time to watch. We look forward to presenting you with some more information of how my body works. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.